Hi there, everyone. It's now 4 o'clock in New York. There's no shortage of news today in the legal troubles facing the disgraced, twice impeached, 4 times indicted ex-president and current GOP frontrunner, including a third Trump lawyer and fourth Trump associate earlier today, pleading guilty in the Fulton County criminal election interference case. But we begin with a moment and a clash years in the making at a Manhattan courthouse earlier today. The disgraced ex-president finally coming face to face with Michael Cohen, the former fixer who once said that he'd take a bullet for Donald Trump. Now, the star witness in that civil fraud trial that threatens to bring down the Trump business empire. Here is what Michael Cohen said on arrival at court today.
Let me just turn around and say that this is not about Donald Trump versus Michael Cohen or Michael Cohen versus Donald Trump. This is about accountability, plain and simple, and we leave it up to Judge Engoron in order to make all the determinations on that. So I thank you all for coming.
A few hours later, in what he called a, quote, heck of a reunion, Michael Cohen took the stand in this $250 million civil suit brought by New York Attorney General Tish James. Early in his testimony, Cohen pointed the finger directly at the man he calls Donald. He was asked about the crimes that he pleaded guilty to, and when it came to lying to Congress about Trump's effort to build a Trump Tower Moscow, Cohen said this, quote, I did that at the direction and benefit of Mr. Trump, end quote. Cohen then went on to confirm a central allegation of prosecutors. NBC News reporting this. Cohen said Trump would come up with his own net worth estimations, and it was up to him and former Trump org CFO Alan Weisselberg to make the numbers work. Quote, I was asked to increase the total assets based upon a number that he arbitrarily elected. Cohen testified about Trump's 2011 financial statement. My responsibility, along with Alan Weisselberg, predominantly was to reverse engineer the various different asset classes and increase those assets in order to achieve a number that Trump asked us for, he said. Asked what that number would be, Cohen said, quote, whatever number he told us. All day long, Trump lashed out at Cohen on social media and in front of the cameras. We'll spare you what he said, but his reaction and his presence in court today is a reflection of the fact that Cohen's testimony gets to the heart of this case, something that Attorney General Tish James acknowledged when announcing her lawsuit last year.
Mr. Trump and his allies may say that these penalties are too harsh or that this is part of a witch hunt. I will remind everyone that this investigation only started after Michael Cohen, his former lawyer, testified before Congress and shed light on this misconduct.
Donald Trump's former fixer on the stand today as the star witness for the prosecution in the ex-president's civil fraud trial is where we begin today with some of our most favorite reporters and friends. Senior editor for Bloomberg Opinion and MSNBC political analyst Tim O'Brien is here, plus former assistant U.S. attorney and MSNBC legal analyst Glenn Kirshner is here, and New York Times investigative reporter Suzanne Craig joins us. She's out at the courthouse for us today. Suzanne, I want to start with you. I said to my team earlier, there's something Shakespearean or maybe My Cousin Vinny about this clash of personalities, and we'll dig into the law of it in a minute. I'm always reminded by smart legal folks that the central question has been decided, that he is liable for fraud, that his business is and was a fraud, has been determined in this case by this judge already. But just take us inside I don't even know what to call them. I think of the movie, I think of all these movie references because of the personalities involved. Take me inside that dynamic today.
Well, you stole the word I was singing, which is it really was Shakespearean. There was about 3 hours of testimony. We could talk about that. But really what the story here wasn't so much today what happened in the courtroom. It was just the fact that these two men were in a courtroom together. They haven't seen each other in several years. When they last saw each other, Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's lawyer and Donald Trump was president. And you just think what Michael Cohen and Donald Trump have been through then. And you had to see when Michael Cohen walked in the courtroom, you looked at a man who has done time for actions that he did on behalf of the president. He has written a book called Disloyal. He had revenge. He has lost his law license. He has lost so much. And today he was here looking at the man who much of what has happened to him, the man responsible for. One of the first things Michael Cohen did when he got on the stand was give his address on Park Avenue. And I couldn't help but think he just gave the street address. It happens to be a building that has Trump's name on it. Donald Trump is just everywhere in this man's life. He's unescapable for him. And today was sort of his opportunity, I think, in Michael Cohen's eyes, to set the record straight.
You know, Susan, I've been thinking about these two men all day and reading the updates, and I do want. We are going to get to the legal developments, but you know, Donald took from Michael Cohen, in his view, everything, and actually he took his freedom. He did time in solitary in Otisville. Michael Cohen is still trying to put his life back together. He finds himself aligned with people he was willing to malign when he was working for Donald Trump. Michael Cohen's life has changed perhaps more than just about anyone else. And Michael Cohen may be central in taking away from Donald Trump the thing that made him president, the facade of a successful businessman.
Right, and the first strings that sort of were pulled on that were by Michael Cohen when he testified before Congress about some of the financial issues that we're now in court about. It's just incredible just to see these two guys. And when Michael Cohen walked in, he didn't look at Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was looking straight ahead. Everybody was sort of just even waiting to see if they exchanged, you know, a glance or had any sort of eye contact, and they didn't. And Michael Cohen, you know, we're on direct right now, so there's been no cross-examination. He has been a cool customer. He's answering the questions very straight. He refers to the former president as Donald J. Trump on most references, or Mr. Trump. He's really coloring in the lines. And I say that because I think a lot of people watching know he has a propensity. He's got a bit of a temper, and he can blast off on social media. And we're seeing none of that. And Donald Trump has been, for the most part, he's been watching the proceedings. He's been fidgeting. He's been on his phone a fair bit. He even just before we came back from lunch was oddly taking calls in court, trying to hide the fact he was, but he's on a screen that we can see. It's been odd, but they haven't sort of had, as we've seen so far, there haven't been any outbursts or any lashing out really by either side.
You know, Glenn, on his phone is how parents of tweens usually describe an unsupervised moment of tweens, but I guess today that is what the current GOP frontrunner was seen doing. I want to press on something that I know is sensitive for Michael Cohen, but is instructive and important about the prosecutions of Donald Trump in New York, the civil and criminal. Michael Cohen had the goods, and Tish James' office and Alvin Bragg's office took the time to corroborate his account, something that Mueller didn't seem to do with Michael Cohen. And SDNY, in the case in which SDNY determines that Donald Trump is co-conspirator, individual one in the hush money case, doesn't do. Why do you think that is?
I don't know why that is, Nicole. I don't know why it took as long as it did in New York. You know, the brazenness of some of what Michael Cohen has been saying during his direct examination, things like Donald Trump just threw out a number. I'm going to say I'm worth $5 billion, and instructing Michael Cohen and the chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg, to just reverse engineer the numbers, just cook the books and have it add up to $5 billion. That is so brazen and so nefarious. And if you're doing it only because you're chasing, you know, tabloid headlines, that's one thing. But Michael Cohen made it pretty clear in both his congressional testimony and I'm sure in his trial testimony that, no, this was to secure bank loans. It was to, you know, secure insurance for his properties. And it was fraud, massive, systemic, years-long fraud. And, you know, in one sense, Nicole, this is an opportunity for Donald Trump to confront his accuser, right? Through his lawyers, you get to confront and cross-examination the witnesses who are testifying against you. But in another sense, this really feels like a moment where Michael Cohen gets to confront his tormentor because, you know, Michael Cohen paid off Playmates and porn stars for Donald Trump at his direction and for his benefit. And who goes to prison? Michael Cohen. I have always maintained that is a deep injustice. Not that Michael Cohen went to prison for his crimes, but that Donald Trump has not suffered one moment of accountability for his crimes. Maybe, that is coming because this feels like a preview of Michael Cohen's testimony for Alvin Bragg in the criminal prosecution being brought for the sort of massive, fraudulent business records case that Alvin Bragg has brought. But I would think ultimately this must be a somewhat satisfying moment for Michael Cohen. I'm glad to hear Suzanne saying he's keeping his cool. I told every witness before I put them on the stand, please keep your cool, because if you lose your cool, you're stepping on the opponent's playing field. So we'll see what happens on cross-examination.